Hey, thanks for listening to the UDRcast. If you appreciate the kind of in-depth conversation and insight into recovery, make sure to sign up as a member. Most of our members pitch in $5 or $10 a month, the price of a few coffees. To make this happen, you can sign up at the website at BILLWARD.life.
The UDRcast is not affiliated and does not represent any 12-step fellowship. I, Bill Ward, the host of the UDRcast, will be sharing my experience and my journey of recovery. That does include, but is not limited to, the literature contained in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps. Our guests will be sharing their own path to recovery and what has worked for them. The UDRcast encourages and supports all paths to recovery. Welcome everybody to the UDR cast. UDR stands for Uncover, Discover, and Recover. My name is Bill Ward, and I'm coming to you from the recovery capital of Canada, Calgary, Alberta. Here we are going to discuss everything recovery, different perspectives, different experiences, both with the people I know and with others from around the world. If you resonate with anything you've heard on this episode today, we ask that you share it with anyone who you think may benefit from it. If you have any questions or comments, please find us at BILLWARD.life and send us a message in the info section. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you are interested in more recovery content, you can find the buttons for the YouTube channel and other social media outlets on the homepage, and you will be redirected to those platforms. We can recover, one person, one family, one community at a time. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Bill Ward with the UDR cast. Good to be back. It's been a little while since I recorded an episode, but you know what? Sometimes we got to take breaks from things and kind of get grounded again. So I'm back today. I'm doing an interview with somebody really special. She was a guest a little while back, shortly after her son had passed, and courageously she showed up and we did a good talk there. I don't know, it was probably about 4 months ago. And we've been trying to get together again. And my good friend, Robyn S, is here today. And Robyn, good to have you back. Thanks for coming again.
Thank you, William, for having me back on.
Yeah. And, I'm just curious as to, I know you've been in school and you've been kind of running around and staying pretty busy. How is the grieving process going and how's life in general?
Yeah, things have been pretty insane. As you know, I went right back into school, which was like 3 weeks after my son had passed away, and I'd already done a semester, and so I thought, okay, I'm going to try to do this again, and I did, and now I'm 3 semesters in, and it's been hard. It's overwhelming. Lots of times I have regrets not taking time off and actually properly grieving. So the grieving process is really crazy. It's all over the place. And, some moments I feel like I've got a good handle on it, and then a lot of moments I really don't. So it's been, all over the place. And the only problem was, I think, a lot of lovely people thought it might be really good for me to be distracted instead of sitting around at home and being sad. And and I kind of felt the same, but not all the time. I don't. I feel.
So you've been really busy. Do you, I know you're pretty in tune with yourself. You're pretty self-aware. Do you feel that you're giving yourself the proper balance in your grieving? Or do you find yourself maybe sometimes distracting yourself by staying busy? And I know other people are trying to keep you busy as well so that you don't kind of fall down that rabbit hole, right? But in your own perception, with your own self-awareness, how do you feel like it's going, the grieving? And I know that's kind of an odd question, but how do you think it's going? Are you staying balanced? Are you distracted, or are you up and down?
Yeah, I'm kind of up and down. Like, the problem is, I had spoken to the school to say, hey, I think I should probably take a semester off, when I started to really feel horrible, and just deeply saddened. And Yeah. And then they basically said I'd have to wait another year, to kind of get back in. And so for me, that was like torture, even the thought of that, because it's really already a difficult course. So yeah, so I just decided to try to plug through it and try to manage my emotions as I went. So, I got to say, like, some days are okay. And then there's days that are definitely not okay. And I am just trying to allow those days that are not okay to be there and try to manage them the best that I can. Um, some days it's unbelievable to me, how I'm getting through. Um, yeah, and there's lots of days, people don't see that it is debilitating. And I'm curled up in a ball and a total mess. Yeah.
So when these waves come and hit you, are you able to? I've never experienced anything like you've experienced, right? And of course, I'm not and never will be a mother. So that's something that I can't fully relate to. But when you have these waves hit you, is it waves of like self-pity where like you're sad that like that you don't get like you don't have your son anymore? Or is it guilt that maybe you could have done something, or maybe other family members, or I don't know, but like what are the waves, and are you able to articulate like kind of what the feelings are and what they look like, and like what the guilt, shame, anger, whatever, deflection?
Yeah, totally. I feel a lot of the time, I'll kind of go back to, the morning I found him. Like we found him, my dad found him first, and then I stumbled upon the scene without ever, I happened to be next door. So, I keep going back to the what ifs, what if I would have, been there and gone into the house earlier, would I have been able to save him, and and of course I mourn all the time the relationship that could have been, right? What he could have been had he not ever picked up drugs. And so, and there's always that blame and shame as a parent. I think with every parent probably feels that, even if you did the best that you could and you did everything, there's still parts of you that is like, oh, maybe if I would have left my husband, when the kids were little, maybe it would have been better. They wouldn't have had to see so much crap. Right. And, maybe if I would have had a better male role model for them, maybe that would have made a big difference. Right. So there's all these feelings, constant feelings. And yeah, and those are debilitating to go through, just the guilt and the shame, and you go through, just random things will pop into my head, like scenes, that I had with him, just crazy talks or things that, maybe I shouldn't have said or something. And then it's like, oh man, I wish I could go back and, change that moment.
So when you think of some of the memories, and a lot of them are good, right? Are you able to come out of that moment like in a good place with the good memory, or is there always like a hint of sorrow kind of underlying it?
Yeah, it's like I'll get into that state where I'm just so consumed by that moment. And I found that, I'll spend all night just sitting there crying. And I started actually journaling to him because I found a few months ago, because actually the last time it was 6 weeks after he passed. So I'm coming up to 9 months almost. So it's actually been a while since we had our last. So, one night I just felt like I needed to write him a letter. And so I kind of started writing to him all the time, as things were coming up for me. And I found that was super therapeutic, that I was just able to say all the things I needed to say in this journal to him. And it's been really beneficial, just to help me get my emotions out. And there are still times where I completely have these breakdowns where, it just feels like it's still unbelievable to me that he's gone. It's just totally unbelievable. And, you know, I don't know. And I actually got a call from the coroner's office, like, oh gosh, I was right in finals for school and in this last semester. And like, I thought I was going to have relief with that phone call. And it was actually quite the opposite. I literally like pretty much buckled to the floor. It was just like, it brought me back right to that day. It was that exact, all of it just consumed me in it. And I really had to take a couple days to process that news. And, you know, it was everything I thought it was.
What was the news?
That he did die from a fentanyl overdose, you know, and so then it's all the feelings of, you know, just anger towards this epidemic and the system, and that there's just not enough being done about this. And why is this being allowed into our country? You know, it's just unbelievable to me.
Like they can shut down the country due to COVID and take all these precautions and spend all this money. But they can't do that with fentanyl and drugs, and they won't put in the effort to save the lives of the people who are here living with loved ones that are dying.
Yes.
But they'll do anything for, you know, for this COVID thing. Like that's always like drove me actually nuts. And there's so many more people dying from drug and alcohol addiction.
Yes.
And the families that suffer like as a ripple effect and all the sickness that comes from like the addict. But they're not doing what they really could do, right? And that's a total nother topic. And you know, you can tell that I can get a little pissed off at our government because I don't believe that they're upholding their moral and actual duty to keep us safe. And you know, they're legalizing cocaine now in BC, and they've legalized marijuana. And you know, I know a lot of people would go against me for my beliefs on, you know, I think that's a terrible idea, but in the long picture and the extrapolate over time, I think that's just going to really devastate our population and our country in a way where we might not see it, but it's going to happen that way, I believe.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough, you know, I do understand it from both sides in the way of, you know, how many people are incarcerated from, you know, maybe having small amounts of drug possession, and, you know, and so like legalizing it in that regard of like, you know, actually putting real criminals into jail instead of people that are addicts, you know, and I understand it in that regard, but I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's insanity to me. It's like, look at this epidemic, you know, it's like, there's just such a total system failure. And I get so pissed off and angry about it all of the time, you know, and you feel like helpless, you know, it's just because it's everywhere, and it's just becoming so apparent now. Like before you couldn't see it everywhere. You can just see it everywhere you go now. It's just there in your face. And it's like, we cannot ignore this anymore. You know, it breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart to see what is happening.
And I work in the addictions field, and I've seen like the legalization of marijuana and the number of young people that are, you know, getting psychosis because of the marijuana and how strong it is. And like they're addicted to it and they can't leave it alone. And then their anxiety and their depression and all these things are ramping up because of the legalization of marijuana, right? And now, you know, cocaine, what's next? Fentanyl, like.
Right.
And what happens is these young kids coming into our world, they see that these drugs are actually distributed by the government or by stores, and it becomes normal. It's the new norm. It's very similar to alcohol, right? We grow up in a society where, oh, you're turning 18. Let's get you hammered for your first time if you've never drank before.
Right.
And let's maybe potentially start you down a terrible path of alcoholism.
Yeah.
And then we celebrate it, right?
Totally. And not giving kids, you know, the tools without all that stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like our society, it's just like, oh, if you've got this issue, oh, go smoke a joint, go have some booze. Like, that is it. Like, there's like, I can't believe the conversations I have with people, and that is just the way it is for them.
Yep.
It's like they can't even imagine just coping, just trying to figure out a way to cope. And, you know, that's the toughest thing to watch.
And when you look at TV and the magazines and wherever we source our information, exactly like what you said is, you know, avoid pain at all costs. You know, here's a drug, here's a vacation, here's a retreat, here's a go for a massage, like whatever it is. Like, we're designed to be able to feel the feelings and go through the pain. And I'm not even going to say go through the pain, because like you and I, we grow through the pain.
That's right.
And that's what I believe the Creator gave us, the ability to navigate that pain in a way for our own journey of healing, and to help us stay humble and obtain more humility so that we can actually develop more love and compassion. And I believe Creator gave us these tools to use, but our society guides us in a different way, and it actually is creating that spiritual malady, the sickness of society in essence. Hey,
it's true. Like, you know, the only way out of the pain is to go through it. You have to go through it. And it is meant to be there to teach you, you know, this is how you learn and this is how you grow. And it, you know, I can only speak for myself. And that has been the biggest thing, is instead of avoiding it, instead of pushing it down, is to actually allow it to be there, because it actually goes. Is, you know, but if you just keep stuffing it down, and I know this from my own experience of stuffing everything down for years. And like I said, I had so many physical symptoms for me. And I know when I'm doing that, because I actually have that same problem with myself now. Once I'm stuffing down because, oh, I'm too busy with school, I don't have time to deal with this right now, I start manifesting it in a physical way very quickly. And then I'm like, oh boy, you know, I need to actually sit down and just have nothing happening and allow this pain to be there, allow it to come up rather than stuffing it down. And I think, you know, now today is so much harder for kids, because there's just so much, like, we didn't have access to all these electronics and stuff, right? So now it's like computers and tablets and cell phones, and like there's just so many distractions with life for people that there's no, you know, there's just no quiet time to sit with yourself and allow things to be there and really be able to think about them without, you know, having to Google it. You know, like, it's all there. It's all there in all of us. It's just, you just got to tune into it, and it's rough.
When you talk about some of the manifestation into the physical form, and you said through your own experience, what had you manifested that came out in a physical form?
Oh my gosh. I've had shingles of my face, which was really lovely. I've had, and like, I had it once. It was painful and crazy. I've had like psoriasis on my face. I've had this crazy face rash that comes and goes. I have lupus flare-ups. I have like the most bizarre things. And I'm a really healthy person. Like, I take really good, I take really good care of myself. Yeah, like migraines, you know, just those kind of things. And I believe that those are 100% from stress, because when I don't have any stress, like if I go away somewhere, I totally feel great. And there's no, like, when I'm not having to worry about everything or think I'm needing to worry about all this stuff, there's no issue. But when I start stuffing stuff down, and like the overwhelm just from being in school and try to manage working and everything like that, I mean, I'm sick the whole entire time. It's insanity to me. But yet it's like, I'm trying to reach a goal, but you know, there's a price to pay.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Right.
And, you know, some of these goals per se are set, you know, I know you're in good shape spiritually, and one of the most emotionally balanced women that I've met in a long time. And you've done a lot of work on yourself to get there. Like, you've told me stories of your past life where you were fucking batshit crazy, right? So you've done a lot of work on yourself and gotten to a place where you're like, a pretty balanced woman. And when we talk about these goals, a lot of I'm going to say younger people or people that, don't really know or understand part of what we're talking about. And I don't want to sound any superior because that's not the goal here. Just like unknowing, maybe they are.
Totally.
These goals that they're pressured into going through school, the marks that they're supposed to get, what they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to achieve it. You're supposed to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant, or, and a lot of the kids have so much pressure. And these are aspects of, you talked about the system earlier. These are aspects of the system that create the spiritual sickness.
Totally.
And then we need to blot it out because that stress of life and the mental stress, and then us not achieving certain goals or, achievements that maybe we thought we were supposed to. And then we create some shame in our subconscious because we're not living up to what we're told we should be. And then we need to blot that out. And, the drugs and alcohol, for the people that start using it, it's usually some type of, a little bit of relief. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing if you can do it moderately in a proper way, but a lot of people end up becoming dependent over years.
Totally.
And then become addicts and get hooked on it. And then they're, in some ways they're also stigmatized and then they have the guilt and shame because they can't put it down, right? So our whole system is kind of fucked. And
it's set up this way, right? It's that high pressure, and believe me, I go through this in my brain all the time because I'm like, God, the cost on my health for being, to try to just get through this program that's really hard. It's insanity. It really is insanity. I contemplate dropping out constantly because I'm like, I literally feel like I'm going to just crumble. I don't know how people go on and on for years doing. It's hard, and the system isn't set up to give a crap. It's like, this is what you need to do. So just do it. I wish it was, I always think in my mind, it needs to be different. They really need to be taking people's mental and spiritual health into account and their physical health, because it does affect you in all of those ways. There's like every single part of you is affected. And, but that's just like in everything. And you're right. Like, people are picking up and gosh, it would be so easy to do that just to get you through, right? Again, it's that coping thing.
And then kind of on that same topic, like some of the value systems that our society has, I'm going to say like relationships. When people meet each other when they're younger, I'm not saying that they don't have some attraction and maybe there's not some love there, but a lot of the value system of why people get together is based on that security of the financial and material security and, the protection of what the man might give the women, or maybe, the presumption of how that parent will be as a father down the road. And, but there's a lot of like underlying a lot of those like perceptions, there's fear under it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And when you base a relationship on a foundation of fear, inevitably it's going to fail.
Right.
So like teaching people and our kids in school, like how to be vulnerable, how to communicate, understanding that people have filters that they both communicate through and interpret other people's communication through, and really trying to teach us how to like love each other so that foundation of love between two parents actually persists through the whole relationship and it doesn't burn down after 5 or 10 or 15 years.
Right.
And the thing about these relationships is often people will stay in them and they're unhealthy.
Right. Yeah.
And so they're like dishonoring themselves even more because the fear of leaving and, and how am I going to support myself? We're built our life on 2 incomes and I don't want to go through a divorce or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But people are dishonoring their truth like fucking all over the place, right?
Yeah. It's a tough one.
It is.
It's a tough one, yeah.
And why I bring that up is because I want to kind of give our listeners like a broader view of like the spiritual sickness, right? And part of what you talked about a couple times now is the physical. So when we live in a state of continual disturbance and fear and stress, we create ulcers, you know, we get heart attacks, we get, you know, anxiety and depression and, and all of these things, right?
Totally.
I heard of this story this guy was telling me about. It was on social media. I heard it on social media. And this guy looked at like African people that don't really have a lot of money. And these people will often not have depression, not have anxiety. They don't have the mental health issues that we have.
Right.
Because they're always in purpose of trying to live and love their family and do things as a community, and so they don't have what we have here.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. We're just totally disconnected as a society. Like if you just look at it, I mean, it's just, we're just totally disconnected. You were disconnected with Mother Nature. We're disconnected with our family systems. You know, marriages are disconnected a lot of the time, like you're saying. You know, and I was actually listening to a podcast this morning, and I think it was Jordan Peterson was talking, you know, about studies that they looked at of, you know, how kids are faring in divorced single mother homes, and it's not good. It doesn't matter if their mom's wealthy, even it's still not good. They actually do better in with having both of their parents together, and we all know that's easier said than done. But it just seems we are in a society where it's just so quick to just be like, no, I can't do this, right? But a lot of the time, I think it's just, you know, we're just not working on ourselves, you know, and yeah, and maybe people will say, well, I do work on myself, but my partner's not. And that's the thing, right? So it's like, it's tough. It's really tough. I'm definitely not a relationship expert whatsoever. So it's a tough one. You know, I mean, I have a lot of regret. You know, sometimes I wish I would have been able to make it work in my relationship. And then I think, gosh, maybe, you know, things wouldn't have happened with my kids that they did, you know.
Okay, well,
there's a lot of guilt for that.
Let's go back into that and say, okay, and if you had stayed in it, would you have been selling out your own truth?
Well, yeah, I feel like I would have, you know, but then part of me is like, well, I don't know, maybe if I just would have worked harder. You know, I'm a perfectionist, so that's like always in my head, you know, I should have tried harder. But it was like I tried for 16 years, and and again, when you're in a relationship with an addict, it's really difficult, right? It's like a whole other. It's not just relationship troubles. There's just that other layer to it, where you're the codependent person, and
so to the physical illnesses that kind of are manifested through negative mental health issues, kind of driven by negative spiritual health. Some people may not really understand that, but whatever. Yeah, we're good. Some people may not understand that, but that's okay. What I'm actually talking about is when we work with like authentic truth of love for ourselves, we communicate in love, we have compassion, we try to live of service, we are connected to ourselves, to our fellows around us, to nature, to our own self-awareness, I guess. When we get disconnected from that and we're isolating, like you say, we end up fucking creating a lot of mental health issues.
Totally.
Then we're going to the doctor and we're saying, okay, what's wrong with me? Why? Again, because we've been trained to do that.
Yep.
And I know you do a lot of holistic medicine, right? And naturopath type stuff, right?
Yeah.
And my girlfriend is the exact same way. And you guys seem to be the healthiest people I know. And you're not like going to the doctor every time you feel something. Like you'd probably be just laid out on drugs if you were at the doctor every time you had something you're grieving or whatever, right?
100%. They're more than willing to give you stuff for all of the ailments. There's never once have I ever gone to the doctor and they've said, how's your mental health? Like, how are you doing spiritually? Nothing. There's never, or how's your diet? You know, like how many people go to the doctor and it's just like, they never even ask them how their diet is. Like, Maybe that they're eating horrific food, and which causes a lot of mental illness as well, just through our food. It's like, it's actually crazy how much we consume that has an impact on us, and people don't know that, but their doctor should actually know that. And instead of giving them drugs to just cover up whatever they've got going on, is actually to have these conversations to see what's happening in your life. Like, why are they not asking you that? Why are they not saying, what's happening at home? Are you okay? Like, are you under a great deal of stress? Like, it's really just never like that. That's never been my experience. It's like, oh, you're feeling sad. Well, here's an antidepressant for you, to help you get through. Well, that just blows my mind, because I'm just like, yeah, there's times where people absolutely need them. But like, in my mind, it's like, after you have exhausted, done a super big inventory on your whole life, and to see where you can make those improvements before you get to that place. Right. And this has been like for me, has just been like a process, right? It's been over years I've been figuring all this out. Like, I think probably now like 15 or 16 years I've been kind of changing up my life and, figuring all these things out, because...
Well, let's look at it. Why do you think a doctor wouldn't want to ask you these questions and then, write you a prescription and say, have a good one, I'll see you in 3 weeks to refill your prescription? My guess is probably because they get paid per visit per customer, and they also probably get a kickback from the drugs that they're selling.
Yeah.
And so money is the basis of probably what a lot of doctors do. I'm not saying all doctors are like that, or everything kind of is that black and white, but
right.
When you look at how our world works, man, the pharmaceutical companies are kind of in control, and they run the fucking show, and you're pretty much running our government too. And when you get like, I don't want to get into the conspiracy theory of COVID and shit. We agree a lot in the same aspects, but there's been a lot of investigating done, and there's been some proof that there's been a lot of coercion between the governments and these pharmaceutical companies, and Bill Gates and his push for the vaccine, and then he sold his stocks, and then he kind of came out and talked, that the vaccine actually wasn't as good as he thought it was, right? And just there's so many of these red flags all over the place, right? And our society's kind of fucked with the governments and the media and just everything.
It's a lot. And people are feeling it right now, just like, again, it's that total system failure. And it's just, everybody's feeling, this terrible feeling right now. And I talk to a lot of people, and, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And so, of course, that amplifies people's emotions and the need to use and, all those things. So, yeah.
When we kind of switching back to what we originally were talking about, when you are interacting with like family members and people that knew Taylor really well, and who also, really loved him and grieve for his loss, how do you and them interact? Is it like awkward for them or for you, or do you find that they don't really want to talk about it, or is it openly talked about, and do you guys celebrate his life, or like, how does that go with the other family members that really cared about him?
Yeah, it's different. Like, there's some people that they're definitely scared to bring his name up, and I don't want that, right? So I'm constantly talking about it. I think people feel bad. Some people feel bad that, maybe they weren't there enough, or, some people just, they're not comfortable talking about death. And some people, they just ask me how I'm doing. How are you doing? Are you okay? Do you need anything? It's really interesting, kind of what happens when you lose someone, and particularly your child, is I think people just don't really know what to say to you. And I totally respect that. I understand everybody doesn't know how to ask. I mean, I think, well-intentioned people sometimes say things that, maybe upset me, but it's not, I don't blame them. I understand that they just don't know. Like, I think sometimes when people say to me, well, at least he's at peace now. I mean, it just, for me, that's like, seriously, you don't fucking know he's at peace, right? And so it's it's upsetting almost to me to hear it, because I feel like I go in those waves where I feel like I don't know any truth, right? And then I think, I don't know that he's at peace. I actually don't know any of it. And, and I think that's when I'm really in a kind of a dark place of my grieving. And so, again, I'm not upset that people say like that. Like, I don't really take it, but it's just in those moments where I'm really raw and vulnerable that I'll feel like, I just feel like sometimes I just don't know anything, and none of us do. Right. So there's still that part of me that's still wondering, where is he? Where did he go? And why hasn't he come to see me like I thought he was going to? And I was reading something the other day, and they were talking about grieving, and they were saying, when you are in these really low vibrating, in a low vibration where sadness kind of lies in that low vibrating energy, your loved one can't come to you because they're in such a high vibrating place that's where you need to meet them. And so when I read that, I actually was like taken back a bit, because I was like, that makes sense to me. And I've been vibrating in this sadness, even though, everybody says to me, you seem so happy, but yet, we can tell that you're probably holding on to this pain. You must be. And I'm like, well, of course. But I also try to be a positive person to everybody, and I don't want to I don't know. I don't show my emotions that way. I just try to bring light to everyone. I don't want to be that person that's like, wandering around crying and stuff. Like, I do cry and I do have my emotions, but I do it in my time, And so, yeah, it's been interesting. My family, they're more likely to bring it up, to talk about him. And I just was out with his best friends, for a couple of his best friends, for lunch the other day. And we were sitting around talking, different stories about him. And I went home, and I was happy and I was sad, because I look at them and they're just so lovely. And I'm just sad that he's not here, and it's just painful. And, yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at right now. Yeah.
So Jordan Peterson also talks about, in one of his talks that I've heard, he's like, when your father dies, he uses the father as an example. He's like, when your father dies, stand up and be someone that can help plan the funeral, and be someone who can, like, people can lean on, and like be there for them. And don't go down that trap of full self-pity. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I think I've seen in you, right? You've been able to grieve it and to move through it, and you have waves of it, but you're always like a source of inspiration or a source of light. And and I think part of our society, I think, even has, the belief systems that we walk around with is I'm supposed to always be sad if I know I lost this person.
Right.
And I don't know if that's necessarily true. There's some sadness, but should I always be sad because this person is no longer in my life? I think a lot of that can also be like a societal belief system that you're supposed to be sad. Because I've known people that have had someone die and they're actually not doing too bad.
Right.
And then when I've talked to them, they're like, it almost like when I talk to people, like they try to shame me for being happy and okay with it.
Yeah.
They tell me that I should be in worse shape than I am. And
right.
Why? And like, because I think that people are trained to think that you should always be in this place when you're thinking about somebody that you lost.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know what your belief is, but my belief is nobody belongs to me and nobody did belong to me. My kids don't belong to me. And like, all I can do is love them and try to be that strength and that pillar and compassion and love and sometimes discipline for them. And I leave it up to fucking the universe, up to my creator. And when I really took the position that they weren't my kids, it kind of allowed me to disconnect from like the possession of that was mine or that's mine.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like if I have a favorite like glass and that's just my glass and I smash it and then I'm really sad, right? It's kind of the same in a relationship. When I'm like, oh, that's just the glass that I love using, I'm going to respect it and treat it really well. And when it's gone, it's gone, and thank God, I don't know if you know, but my one daughter, she smoked fentanyl about 4 months ago.
Oh, shit.
She quit school and had, she was giving signs months ago prior to Christmas. And this is what happened. So she was in recovery. She did really well. And this is what a lot of people do. They do well, and then they want to change everything, and they want to go to school, and they want to get this job, and they want to get in these relationships, and they want everything right now.
Yeah.
And so she kind of went a step ahead, and her mom arranged for her to get into school and do these things. And, my opinion was maybe she needed a little bit more time to groove this new way of life into her life before she put the pressure of school. And like you said, at school there's a lot of work and they inundate you with homework.
Mm-hmm.
She felt that exact thing, and she was ready to kind of give up before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
But she talked with me and she talked with her mom, and we kind of were like, maybe you should stick it out, at least get through the semester. And then she got into the new year, and one day it just came crashing down, and she ended up going out and finding some dudes on the streets in Lethbridge and asking them if they knew where there was some Xanax or whatever. And they didn't. And they found her fentanyl.
Oh, God.
And the thing is these guys showed her how to use Narcan and said, don't do it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they even went to the hospital with her to get her the Narcan before she even used it. And then she used it that night. And then she sent me a text saying, I got to get out of here before I die. And then I called her. I think she sent me that in the middle of the night, and I called her the next day. And then she let me know, right? And like, that was fucking scary for me, because I could have lost her, and who knows?
Yeah.
Right? Luckily,
I'm
she.
so sorry.
Yeah, and
I didn't know that. You didn't.
Yeah,
no, we haven't really talked.
No.
We're going to talk about this, but let's go back to what you were talking about before, just so I can wrap up the grief thing of you talking about, what people expect our societal beliefs on grieving. Yeah. Everybody gets to grieve however the hell they want to grieve. I will not be told how I get to grieve or how I don't get to grieve. Nobody knows how anybody is actually doing. Only you as an individual, right? So I will not be told how to grieve. If I'm going to meet my son up in a high vibrating place, you're damn fucking right. I am going to lift myself up to that place to meet him. I'm not going to sit down wallowing in misery and pain and shame and guilt. I can't do it. I go in waves of it, but I will pull myself out of it because I won't meet him there. Right. And I'm not saying I'm right up here either. I'm not. I'm trying to get there. And like, it's a process, and I'm not there, and I'm trying my best to just get there. And so I just wanted to just touch on that, because I think, and if you're curled up for 5 years in fetal, that is okay too. Right. Because that is your way of grieving, and there's just nothing wrong with it. But I think when people come in and then they start telling us how we're supposed to do things, like, it's just, nobody needs to hear that. everybody just needs to be supported where they're at, and it's all okay. So that's all I needed to say on that.
Okay, on that, do you believe in the societal 5 stages of grief?
I mean, it's funny because I'd actually done a project on that when I was doing addictions studies, right? And, I can see that you go through all of those things. Absolutely. But I don't think you go through them in any order, and you go actually around in different things. Like I said, when I got the news from the coroner telling me that it was, fentanyl, I had already had that in my head the whole entire time, but because there was a heart issue as well, I kept just thinking, oh, maybe it was his heart, and then I was going to go down that rabbit hole of like, oh my God, start blaming the doctor should have picked up on this and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, yeah. Now I've just lost my train of thought. It just got wiped out.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
We were talking about how the 5 stages of grief. Okay, maybe they're there, but we kind of bounce all over.
You bounce all through them. There is no, oh, you go through this stage and then you go through this stage. That it doesn't work that way. And everybody's totally different. And you may stay in one of those stages for a really long time, and then you might come out of it. And you might not do all those stages. So I don't even believe you go through all of them. Or maybe you go through all of them right away. Like I went through all of those stages very quickly, all in like 2 or 3 days, and then I would find myself back into a different stage of it, and so it's just all over the place. There is no.
But is that not what they were teaching you in school, that's kind of the process?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the basic process. But again, a lot of books that I've read, they said, no, like, no, it's not like that. There is no, and everybody just does it differently, and that's what I'm finding is like, I can be just trucking along and feeling pretty good. And then all of a sudden it was like, I just literally ran into a wall head on, and it smacks me right down. And it's like, whew, here we go again. Am I going to get through this? That's my first thought. Am I actually going to get through this? Am I going to end up not being able to get out of bed? And I think that I have, my grandkids, I think, have helped me a lot to be able to get through, because I just have to, be there for them and show them that you can get through these things, and they're hard. There's no, it's painful. I can't even express how painful this is to go through, and parents that are maybe listening, that have gone through this, they know exactly what I'm talking about, because you can only understand when you're in it, what this feels like, right? There's just every single emotion that you can possibly have is just boom. And like you were just talking about your daughter, and, that must have brought up so much pain just at that thought that you could have lost her that night, because she was by herself and she wasn't, with someone there that could have been watching her, right? Like it's just there's just such a small degree of separation, like when people think that, oh no, that can't happen. Damn right, it happens just like that. And then you'd be sitting here going exactly through it, right? And it's just, I'm just so glad that she has you for her dad, and that you do what you do, and she's able to call you. Like she feels safe to call you, and she knows that you're going to show up for her. Right? And how's she doing now?
She's doing really good.
Aw.
She's doing really good.
Good.
That day, the next day, we talked, and we had a really good talk, and we talked about her school and her work, and, her recovery program that she was neglecting ultimately, and talked about many things. And she was scared to ask if she could just come home.
Right.
And because of, again, that pressure.
It's the pressure and the failure thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to be, everybody's going to think I'm a failure.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what anybody thinks at all. It's like, that is like the worst pressure we put on ourselves, is who cares what anybody thinks? But when you're young and in your 20s, you always are caring about what people think. And I think that's like the hardest thing. And then, you know, as you get older, you stop that. Most of the time, you stop really caring what people think. Like right now, you know, like I say, I talk about it all the time. I talk literally about quitting because I feel like, God, I need to actually like stop and just relax and like, you know, but I don't really care what anybody thinks about it, to be honest. It's up to me now at this point of how I'm feeling. And if I'm not feeling like this is going to work and it's making me suffer, then, you know, I got to stop.
Yeah. And so she was asking me what I thought. And I said, Lucy, if you need to come home, you need to come home. And because she didn't have a lot of friends there and her environment at work was, you know, she just went to work. She didn't use or drink or anything, but a lot of that environment, because she worked at a bar.
Right.
She was a hostess at a bar and some of her friends drank, but that was the environment.
Right.
And then other than that, she didn't have a lot of friends, right? So the two new friends that she did make and what she had done for a decision that night, I was scared shitless that could happen again.
Right.
So I wanted her to come home like as quick as possible, right? So she got back home and I said, you know, let your landlord know, like, blah, 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 that you're going to move out in like a month or two and just get home and come spend time with your mom, right? Go to your mom's, get back connected with your sister and your family, and then we'll just take it one step at a time and, you know, don't worry about anything.
Right.
Because we love you. That's all that matters. And there's no need to feel guilty or bad or you're not a failure.
No.
Like none of that shit.
None of those things.
And I think if there's anything I've taught my kids is every experience is just a little step in the direction of our life. And there's nothing that's wrong or right.
Right. Yep.
And so
100%.
She's doing good now. And
oh, good. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
Makes me happy.
And my other daughter's struggling with stuff but she also reaches out and calls and, you know, so, and I think, you know, no matter what, as long as you give your kids love and you give them compassion, you give them these things and, you know, no matter what they go through, and life's going to get their hands on them and life's going to have a chance to kick their ass.
Yep.
And take their fucking life possibly.
Yeah.
I always say you give them everything you can and life gets their hands on them and it's a 50-50 crapshoot.
Yep. That's so true.
And for you, you know, it didn't work out on that 50-50 crapshoot. Right? So far for me, it has worked out. Because I truly believe, you know, if Taylor would have been able to make it through all that hard shit, all the love that you'd given him, you would have come back to that and it would have probably carried him for the rest of his life, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But it's those 20s and the early 30s that you got to make it through, right?
Oh, yeah, I know. That's the thing. That's the hard.
Even you, when did you smarten up in your life?
In what regard?
Like where you finally said, you know what, I'm fucking kind of taking responsibility for my own path and whatever societal belief systems or whatever you were supposed to do, you kind of said, fuck it. I'm taking another path.
It started in my early 30s.
Right.
Like it started,
right.
You know, but like, you know, it's many layers.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's always this evolution. You think you got it and then you get smacked in the face with a whole bunch of other stuff that you need to just keep dealing, like different things. You're just dealing constantly with different things. And, you know, you just keep going that way. And then eventually you just, you know, you kind of get ahead of it. It almost feels like you get ahead of it. And then, yeah, you still get things, but you've learned from all these other past things. You know, you've almost got this really great armor, you know, that you're able to be like, okay, okay. You know, Taylor by far was the most painful thing I've ever experienced. And I just miss him. I just miss him, you know. I miss our daily phone calls and I miss his hugs and I just miss his sense of humor and his sweet little laugh and, you know, but I've got lots of memories and I got lots of pictures and videos and, you know, so.
Where's Bowser?
He's actually with my mom which
No
is,
way.
yeah. She and her husband adopted him. And so he's very happy. He's very spoiled.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to ask you something. It's kind of in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
You were a single mom?
Yep. From, how old would I have been? Like 35?
And how old were the boys?
Taylor was like 14 and Rye was like 11.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I'm in recovery, right? And I know many single moms and women in recovery with kids and whatnot. And, you know, and my girlfriend's a single mom, and my ex-wife is now a single mom of older kids, of course. But, like, I just see, again, back to the system, like, single moms are very weakly supported, wouldn't you say? And they don't really have, like, a lot of avenues to really go and better themselves down.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And, like, I find a lot of the women that come into recovery that are not able to really pursue their recovery because of the obstacles in regards to, like, they got to constantly be a parent.
Right.
Whereas the father's not as much, right? So, you know, and I know, like, lately around Calgary, like, our rents have gone through the roof, right?
Yeah.
Did your rent go up?
Not yet, but it's coming up for renewal soon. So I'm anticipating that's coming. I'm like, oh.
So I see all these people on Facebook, like, posting about, like, my rent's gone up, or I can't find a place. And primarily it's women.
Yep.
And so my girlfriend, her rent went up $800 in 1 month.
Holy cow. That's insanity.
Yeah. And
like, that's insanity to me. Like, how is somebody, especially in our depressed economy, like, are you kidding me? $800 for a single mom? Like, how is she supposed to afford that? I mean,
and there's nowhere for her to really get, like, the help that she needs. And she's not looking for handouts really either, right? She's looking, like, she talks to politicians and calls her MLA, and she's like, where's the rent cap? Like, like our society is, like, struggling right now, and food is, like, at an all-time high, and you can't even, you know, 2 bags of groceries cost you $150.
Totally. Right. And but they're so consumed with the, you know, the climate action, and, you know, having to tax us up the butt for all that too. And it's like, holy cow, like, how much more can our society take? And again, it goes back to, you know, people are so stressed out, and of course they're using, right? Like, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And it's like, there's no money being put toward helping this giant issue, you know, because we're helping, you know, other countries with their issues instead of helping our own country with all of our issues. And we have so many issues here that it just pisses me off. And, you know, I can go on and on about this, and I don't want to get into political things on your podcast, but, you know, as a society, we have to start standing up to this, because this isn't right. This is not right. And it's not getting better, you know?
No, it's just getting worse.
It's getting worse. Yeah.
And why I brought that up is just because, you know, I see, like, my girlfriend struggling to, you know, make ends meet. University student, finally got her master's in what she was going for, and now she's entering into the workforce in a different way. She's got to navigate this process, and, you know, and to some degree, even being a woman, it's a little harder to do, right? And now she's got to, like, figure out how to make $800 extra in a month and still raise her kids. And, you know, the one father's a terrible father. He's not the best father, and he's got mental health issues, and she has that added stress, so she has to give her son, like, more time. And, like, you know, man, I have, like, my heart goes out to mothers, and
it's hard. It's a hard go.
Yeah.
I've said that the whole entire time.
Yeah.
Like, it's harder for women. It actually is really harder because of the jobs. Like, you know, I said it's definitely easier You know, I mean, it's not, you know, some women would probably argue, well, I can do the jobs that men do, but I know just for me personally, that just wasn't an option. I didn't want to be a roofer or a framer or work up on an oil rig. Like, that's just, you know, it's just not my thing. Right. And it's like, I'll admit I'm a total, like, I'm a wimp. There'd be no way I could do it. And I won't claim that I could, you know. Props to you if you can, right? And I totally think that's awesome. And I'm not dissing any women. I think that's great if you can actually do those things. But I know for myself, I'm just simply not strong enough to do that, right? And yeah, I've struggled for a lot of years since, you know, leaving my husband. It's been a rough go. There's no question about it. You know, it's just much easier having a second person living with you, whether it's a roommate or whatever, right? Because you can split on food and you can kind of split on everything. So it's a lot easier than when you're just on your own. And then when you're on your own and you're a single parent, and then you've got, you know, a spouse that isn't contributing. You know, mine didn't give me anything, no child support or anything. So never. He just didn't feel like he needed to. And I never took him to court. I never did any of that. So I had that responsibility of taking care of the kids. And like I said, the kids would kind of migrate back and forth. And, but mainly, you know, Taylor was typically always with me. And so, and even my other son, it was always like I would, you know, he would come down and I'd have to pay for all the dental bills and all the school clothes and everything that Dad wasn't doing, right? And it was always on me, and Dad was making way more money than I was. And it was just like this huge heaviness, but I never even considered it. I just went without for myself. It was just always making sure they were taken care of, you know? And so it's a huge stressor for sure. And it's a lot.
Hang on. I think we're recording. I'm positive we're recording. Okay. So, Robyn, so we're kind of coming to the end here, and have you had any other mothers reach out to you, or have you pursued any of that angle of, like, you know, trying to serve other parents that might have been affected by, you know, some of the same things that you've been affected by?
I have not done anything yet because I've been so consumed with school and work that I haven't had time, but I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and, you know, trying to figure out where I can be of service. So it's there. Mm-hmm. It's going to evolve into something. I know it will. Mm-hmm. I feel like it will. Because I feel like, you know, there's so many of us out there that something needs to change. We need to support each other for sure. Mm-hmm. Right? There's just, you need to have other parents that know what you're going through.
Yeah.
Because it's just not, you know, it's like, of course, everybody is supportive. But just some people just don't totally understand, right? And so it's really good to have.
Yeah, I don't know where I'd be without the support network that I've built in my recovery. Mm-hmm. And like, you're also in recovery, right? You're in a different kind of recovery.
Totally.
But in the kind of under the surface of it all, we're in the same recovery because you're recovering from hurt and trauma and old patterns and, you know, coping mechanisms, and that's what I'm recovering from ultimately too. And mine just takes me to fucking drink or use drugs.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that fellowship that you crave grows up about you, and I hope that you're the spearhead that you are, right? I hope that you honor that part of yourself, because I remember you saying before you didn't want Taylor to die in vain, and you felt like you wanted to do something. And I know from my experience that sometimes whatever that something is, we don't know what it is.
Totally.
I haven't known, and I spent many years praying and meditating on what my path was. Mm-hmm. And my path has revealed itself to many degrees. But like I was talking with Courtney, my girlfriend, the other day, I said, there's still things that I don't know that I wish the answers would come, because I'm ready to fucking go here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's on God's time, Creator's time sometimes, and I just have to kind of be patient. So, any closing remarks to the listeners? I'm thinking of this one person in particular who I know had lost her daughter. And, maybe if you could speak to her, and she's struggling in her addiction right now again. She went out recently, I think, or I don't know exactly where she's at, but, if you could look at her and tell her something, or anybody out there, as you're kind of, how many months into this now?
Going on to 9.
9?
Yeah. Which feels crazy that it's already been 9 months. Yeah.
We'll give a little message of hope out there for anyone who's a parent that might be going through something similar. I also know another lady in her family that went through something tragic recently too.
My heart goes out to them. This is not an easy road, and you just have to be so kind and gentle to yourself, and again, just allow your process is your process, right? And just don't go and retreat to yourself, just because people need you, right? Like, people still need you. And when I say that, I mean, like, you don't have the capability to really be there for people, or, you know what I mean? Like, I really had to be really gentle on myself, because I'm always that person that's there for people, and I want to help as much as I can. But I just have gone, I'm just kind of coming back out of my shell again to do that again. But for those first few months, I just literally had nothing in me to be able to give to anyone. And so you really have to allow just to give it to yourself, just be there and be kind and gentle to yourself. And it's hard. It's just so hard. But, there's so much beauty in grieving too. Like, I think that there's a lot of times now that I stop, and I'm really just enjoying everything that's happening, no matter what it is, like, I'm just trying to it's so hard to explain. I'm like trying to articulate this. It's like, but I feel like I'm trying to follow, like, I always say to myself now, what would Taylor want me to do in this situation? What would he want me to do right now? And then that's how I'm acting. That's how I'm going out in the world, is what he would want me to be doing, and yeah, that's my nugget.
Well,
so far, yeah.
That was amazing. I really had a good time chatting with you today, and it's really good to see you. I haven't seen you in a little while.
Thank you. It was good to see you too.
So let's stay in touch, and thank you so much for coming, and I can't wait for the next one.
Sounds great. Thank you, William.
Thanks, Robyn.
Thank you for tuning in to the UDRcast. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. The viewpoints and the opinions expressed today were solely of the individual sharing them. If you resonated with this episode, please follow us and share this link with anyone that may benefit from it. Please visit us at BILLWARD.life to see everything that we have going on. We can recover, one person, one family, one community at a time.